industry people there that can hopefully answer your questions or give you some take-home messages. But please, if you've got something to contribute, feel free to contribute, because every discussion contributes to triggering a thought somewhere. I'll hand over to Isabel to introduce the panel, and we'll then open with a couple of questions I've got here.
Thanks, Chris. Well, obviously you guys know our two speakers. I've also invited, we had a few companies who offered to sponsor this event so that it could get put on. And I'd really like to provide them with an opportunity to take some questions from you guys and kind of offer a bit of insight in terms of the support that you've given us and how important that you find that. So we've got Mel Dowling from Neogen. If anyone's ever submitted TSU samples to Neogen and you get these really delightful and straightforward questions to you and then you get your responses back, this is Mel, so it's great to see your face now. We have Hugh from Zoetis. So Hugh's been part of some producer events over at GMP recently. So that's been really great from a lamb production but also a meat processing point of view. And we've got Clara Bradford here, who's part of the MLA and kind of knows all things sheep genetics and reference populations and whatnot. So it'd be really great to have her answers too. So there we go.
Thank you. Well, everyone's attention is over there. Can you describe the value of data collected in the satellite flocks and how it has enhanced the overall reference population we've got?
Yep, thank you. So I guess just to give a little bit of background, Meat and Livestock Australia run what we call the sheep reference flock, and that reference flock is designed to help underpin genomics or the use of genomics in our genetic evaluations. So we started off as the INF run by the Sheep CRC, and then in 2012 MLA took over the running of that. That enabled the release of single-step or genomically enhanced breeding values back in 2016. And then, as Pete showed, the subsequent indexes and so forth coming from that. So what a reference is basically where you have a bunch of animals that have a phenotype or a trait recorded on them, and that also have a DNA test taken on them as well. And then what that enables is for a producer to go and take a DNA sample on their animals, and what we try and do is match the patterns between that animal and the population that we've been recorded, and we use that to determine how that animal performs. So for eating quality, this has been really important because for seed stock producers, you can't breed from them if you kill them. So from a genomic sense, that's enabled us to actually select for eating quality without having to remove those animals from the breeding system. So genomics has been a really important tool for that. But from an MLA perspective, our reference flock needs to be across all breed types, merinos, terminals, maternals, the whole works. And so we only have a certain capacity in which we can do that. At the moment we're recording roughly 2,000 ewes a year, between 115 to 150 sires. And the way we do that is based on the proportion of different breeds across industry. So, Poll Dorsets and White Suffolks feature quite highly in that, and so does Merinos, and then also our smaller breeds. But we have a limit in our ability to collect those records. So one of the things we did was we went, well, there's plenty of keen producers that can participate in this. So we set up an option for a satellite flock. So we had an eating quality satellite flock, and we also had a reproduction satellite flock. And essentially we said, well, if producers are keen, you can go and collect the key on-farm traits, and then we'll support the collection of the meat science or carcass traits in plant along with the genotype of those animals. And that has enabled an extra, for eating quality, it's around 5,500 records that we've collected through the satellite flocks on top of our reference population. And for reproduction, it's been around 10,000 extra records that we've been able to collect. So it's been a really good collaboration model between what we can do from a research project perspective, but also how we can utilise keen producers that are wanting to support those type of projects as well.
Thank you. If you've got any questions, hold that thought, because I'm going to direct 3 questions first up, and then we'll go for audience participation. The next one I've got is to Hugh from Zoetis. Zoetis have done a lot of work looking at animal health in processing plants. What animal health issues would you say reduce performance and hence reduce profitability in lamb production?
So as Isabella alluded to, I've been lucky enough since starting with Zoetis to be able to be part of the Feedback Focus initiative, which is an industry-led program where producers, alongside processors such as GMP, take producers through an abattoir, and we're able to see the entire process. Where Zoetis then get involved, where we then provide some learning and extension work to show what can be happening to those carcasses and downgrades that may be caused due to disease or things such as vaccination lesions and things like that. So from our point of view, Zoetis, a very large and the largest animal pharmaceutical company in the world, we're primarily an R&D company. So to be able to provide information and feedback, and we've spoken a lot about feedback today, heard Michelle speak about it a lot, is to be able to provide feedback to farmers about why they might be receiving less prices than what they thought, why there might be diseases on their farm and why there might be productivity losses. So that's been an absolutely fantastic initiative and great to be part of. As an ex-producer myself, I used to find it quite frustrating where I would have lambs set for a very specific grid. I would have weighed them lots and lots of times, maybe too many times, and then would be seeing myself getting a discount. And it wasn't until we've got these feedbacks now, and I did ask Clara before if we could sort of talk about MLA's initiative for the My Feedback Loop that a lot of producers probably don't really know about too much at the moment. But I think that probably the biggest one that we're seeing through the abattoir and through our feedback focuses are things like vaccination lesions, arthritis. Arthritis is probably without doubt the biggest one we're seeing, and it's not until we actually take the head off an animal and we can actually see some of these animals that have heavy trims and they're basically subclinical issues that we don't see on farm. So to be able to basically be putting a figure against those and actually see what it's costing you, and that there is interventions that we can take on farm to basically make you more money. So I hope that answers your question well enough.
No, thank you. I risk getting myself looked at and scowled at or something here at the moment, but you just mentioned the My Feedback Loop. Yep. Have we got the ability to run through to the My Producer login on the MLA website on the screen to show people what is available? Because I know I've seen it, I saw it at a sheep meat committee meeting once a couple of years ago. Have we got the ability to do that here or not? I guess that's an MLA question.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, it's just, it would be great for people to see, because how many people understand what's available? There's not a lot of...
Yeah, I think that's the thing that surprised me, is to know that information is out there, to actually see how kills that are against your pick, that we can actually see that what diseases have been found in the abattoir, even things like grass seeds, vaccination lesions, bladder worms, arthritis, like it's amazing stuff. So, and as I said, it's all about us portraying this to you and so that you know.
Right, thank you. I've got a question for Mel. Pete McGilchrist mentioned 500,000 merino genomics and 100,000 terminal genomic tests, and there is a huge increase in uptake. Why do you think producers are moving into DNA, and what benefits can they get?
Thank you, Chris. So there's a couple of different reasons why people are moving more towards genomics. There's three core reasons: accuracy, early measurements, and measuring those hard to measure traits that we've been talking about today. So firstly, accuracy. By using genomics, you get a huge jump in the accuracy of your breeding values, because we can be more sure about which genes are coming from the ewe, which genes are coming from the sire, and hence what's making up the lambs that are on ground for you. In terms of DNA parentage as well, which we also offer, just knowing exactly who the sire is, who the dam is, gives you so much power. You hear around all the time that pedigree is king. So just having that accuracy of data and increasing the breeding values that you've got access to. The next thing is obviously you have the ability to know how that animal is going to perform as an adult very early in life. So we can accept a TSU sample from an animal at birth. Okay, so if you're doing lambing rounds, you feel free to take your TSUs then. A lot of people wait till marking, till they're all through the yards, they're on the cradle, it's easy, they're confined. But, you know, the lab turnaround time is 3 to 4 weeks, so within a very short space of time, by the time you are weaning those animals, you have a full set of data, a full set of breeding values on how that animal's going to perform as an adult. What its meat eating quality is, what all of its weights as an adult, etc. are going to be. So you just have been empowered with so much information. And finally, obviously, those hard to measure traits, the things that we do through projects like at Bowen Park, measuring shear force, intramuscular fat, all of those things are delivered through doing genomics, things that you can't measure on farm or too hard, too difficult to measure. So really the power of genomics is information. It gives you so much information at your hand to be able to make very good decisions early on in that animal's life.
Okay, thank you. Well, audience participation. Questions, please, to anyone on the panel? Yes.
Just on Neogen, how long do you think it'll take before we can get rid of on-farm testing and just get it straight from that chip, that little snip?
As in to not do any form of measurement whatsoever?
Yep.
Yep. Okay, so there's a project at the moment in development, and MLA have been involved in this, whereby we've been working with the merino population because they have a very solid reference population to be able to take a sample, get it processed with no measurements and get a value back. Now that's not a full breeding value, it is a ranking of the animals on your farm. In terms of the terminal space, that's the next part of the project, so I can't probably give you an end date on that, but it is in progress, it is work in progress. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Clara, or not.
Anyone wish to add anything? No? Yep.
Further to that, if the number of DNA tests has gone up hugely, how come the prices have come down?
So
we were told that when there was all these tests going to happen, the price was going to crash.
yeah,
It's
that's
gone up.
So it's actually to do with the technology, okay? So the cost of a chip, which is what we measure on, there's a couple out on the table if you've never seen a chip before, has not gone down. The price of actually processing chips has gone up, and hence why our costs we have tried to keep them as stable as possible, but it's actually the technology. And at this point in time, there is no other technologies out there that can give you the information that we need that's any cheaper, unfortunately.
Thank you. Other questions, please? Terry?
Is Donald likely to affect the price of chips in the future? Donald Trump?
I don't know.
It's an unknown at the moment, isn't it?
Mhm.
Okay.
He's very unknown.
Yeah. Any other queries or questions or people there? Phil?
If we all stop physically testing on the ground and something in the system, like has happened to Chief Genetics on more than one occasion, goes haywire, how are we going to know?
So, genomics is built on a reference population. Okay, so we have to have that reference population sitting behind it. My best advice to everyone in the room is that you look after your own reference population. So when you're testing your animals, you need to also be continuing to think about, okay, what's important to my breeding value, and hence what do I need to take some phenotypic measurements on to keep shoring up your own reference populations.
I hate to be the only one, but
No, that's all right.
if this is all built on a reference population, how much longer is the reference population going to last? Because I've been told that money's run out and it's not going to happen for much longer.
I can answer that. MLA will always invest in reference populations. The point we're at now is that originally when we were investing in reference populations, it was to enable the use of genomic technologies. Now we've gotten to a situation where we need to measure new traits, keep the reference population going, add in new animals, add in new diversity. So the populations are actually not, we can't not invest in them because our accuracy prediction for genomics will go down, because we have a 5-year decay on basically from if you stop doing a reference population, within 5 years your genomics information will not be accurate enough. So we recognise that we always have to invest in reference populations. The difference is, take eating quality as an example. We now have close to 10,000 records in eating quality for most of the major breeds, which means we're reaching what we would call a maintenance position, which means that in a couple of years we don't actually have to record as many records on as many animals in order to maintain the same level of accuracy, which means how we invest in reference populations needs to change so that we can capture data on new and novel traits that will impact breeding programs. And a good example of that is methane, for example. It's a new trait that people are interested in. It's very expensive to measure. It's something that we need to do reference populations for. We have very limited records in that space. So how do we continue to invest in eating quality and invest in methane at the same time? So one of the things that we're trying to do at the moment is come up with models for reference populations where everybody in the supply chain is contributing. Not just the research organisations, not just the producers, but everyone within that supply chain. And that has a few challenges associated with it, but it also means that it's a lot more, the cost of all of this is spread across everybody who's actually benefiting from a reference population. A really good example of that is when you asked about genomic-only products. So those people who can get a breeding value from only using a genotype, they've collected no phenotypic information. They're actually taking more from a reference population than somebody who's actually collecting phenotypes and genotyping at the same time. So it's likely in the future that there will be a system to support reference populations where those people accessing those products will have to pay more, and the cost differential between that is what will contribute to a reference population. And that will allow us to actually continue our investment over time and maintain a reference population to support genomics for a longer period. But it's not that we're not going to invest in, the money's dried up and we're not investing in reference populations. It's just that the issue now has become more complex because we've got more traits, we're in a different phase, we're not trying to enable a new technology, we've actually hit a maintenance point. How do we continue to fund this in a sustainable way for a longer period of time?
Terry, I've got one over the back here, then I'll come back to you. Ashley.
Oh, just following on from that, Clara, that sounds like a good principle, and the people that don't measure the trait pay more to get it. Is that going to happen? Like, it should happen soon?
Yes. Yeah, it's absolutely, internally at MLA, we're working on what does a potential system or what we would consider a value-based pricing structure look like. There's a couple of components to that. The first bit is making sure we have good science around, what is the value of a phenotype to a genetic evaluation, and we're working on that through some research projects with AGBU right now. The second side of that is how do you implement a payment structure or system that flows through the supply chain where we can capture those dollars and feed it back into building a reference population. We still have to work through some of those things, but the general principle is that that's the direction that we need to move in so that everybody in the supply chain is contributing to the building of a reference population.
You want to comment, Mel, on the commercial side? No. Right.
When?
Soon.
One word question, one word answer. Terry?
Clara, does AWI give any funding for those reference populations, or even in New Zealand, and have you considered approaching both of those for them to lift their investment?
Previously they have, yes, on certain traits. So most of their contributions have been towards traits that directly impact merino breeders or breeds.
AWI?
Yes. And New Zealand, a lot of the collaborative work we've done there has been on foot rot. So a lot of it has been trait dependent. But yes, there is opportunity for us more formally to work with other organisations, so it's not just MLA in particular fitting the bill.
But does AWI put any in that now? Any money in?
No.
Not at the moment.
Questions?
I've got a question.
Yeah.
I'm just interested what I think what was come out today is quite clear. We've got the gunner guy down here that are saying that we need lambs and with high eating quality, and the other thing, I think the shear force has come out quite clearly as something that's really important. But as a breeder, I think we need to understand the rams that we're using in our studs at the highest level, the accuracies of that data. And I think what lacks at the moment is understanding of linkage between those rams in that database and the accuracy of that information. So probably to Isabel more than anything, and to Clara, is that I think we really need a system that you can search the database, the sheep genetics database, and identify link size that have high accuracies for eating quality, and then that would then allow the breeders to then multiply those individuals out, because it's quite clear to me that we're going to run out of, with the sheep population that's plummeting, we're going to run out of sheep pretty quickly if your markets continue to grow at the level they're going to grow at.
I'm not sure we're going to run out of sheep. They reproduce pretty quickly when you need them to. So I will answer your accuracy question based on a scenario that actually I came across last month. So we sent a small group of cull stud lambs through GMP just to do some ground truthing. Basically, we wanted to just verify that what we thought was happening genetically was. We'd had a surplus. We had too many lambs last year. We didn't need as many stud lambs as what we had. So we had a group, about 100 lambs that were fully DNA tested, fully pedigreed, fully everythinged, and we sent them through. Now, they hadn't been bred and fed completely as an individual cohort, but they had been running together for the last 2 months. So we were pretty comfortable that nutritionally and management-wise they were equal. Of that, we had 4 main sires that we wanted to look at. 2 of them had been through Bowen Park before. One of them is our link sire within Bowen Park this year. He's had progeny, he's had grand progeny, he's had all sorts of down the pedigree tested for his eating quality. And so we effectively had a benchmark point that we wanted to work in and around. One of the other rams was one of his sons, and he'd also been through Bowen Park. So we had 2 really firm linkages that when we married up the numbers for the other 2 sires that we had in there, we were pretty confident that what we got was going to be really good, accurate data. Now, what we find is that when you've got... We found out what we expected to find out, which was great. We verified what we knew, and so now we go on with our breeding program. But from an accuracy point of view, what we found is that animals that have had carcass testing back through their pedigree, so that they themselves have had progeny, their sire has had progeny tested, and often that also needs to indicate that they've been used in other studs and have had progeny testing in there. The accuracy level and the result that you get is very dependable. So it's quite a heritable trait, but if you don't have the level of testing on it, you can't actually rely on that. So your point is absolutely right. We need to be able to identify particular sires that have got that level of confidence to them, and hopefully we find ones that have actually got valuable traits at the same time. But if we can find that accuracy level that means that when people do use them in their program, they're going to get almost guaranteed results, then the way we move forward is incredibly fast. But if we can't identify that level of accuracy, then we take a step forward hoping that it's the right one, but then sometimes finding out that it's not.
Would it not be something pretty important to know?
Oh, it absolutely is, yep. I think that stud breeders actually should use their own time and their knowledge and find out what they should be looking at. Like I don't think that we need to identify these are Gold Star rams. Maybe within our Poledoursal breed we should do that, but I don't think it's an industry requirement. But if we want to help each other in our breed, absolutely that would be worthwhile. So if you find a couple, let me know.
Anybody else like to add anything? Clara?
The only other bit I'd add to that is that in order to do a really good job of shear force, we will still need to continue to have phenotypes on shear force. So, and that's the limitation in comparison to IMF and lean meat yield at this point in time, is that now we've got the capacity to have those phenotypes coming from a commercial system. With shear force, we don't. that's back to the point about reference populations are still going to be continuously important because we need those phenotypes in order to do a really good job of it. So shear force is definitely on our end, is that anything that we're putting through a plant from a research project has to absolutely have that phenotype collected on it because we've got no other way of capturing that data.
Thank you. Okay. Other questions, please? Yep, Phil?
With the new run of the enhancements that are coming out next month or the month after, whenever it is, and you're going to have 2 runs of Merino and a milk sheet plant. As you know, I've been bought that for 28 years, and I was told by Sheep Genetics that my flock wasn't well linked within the borderless breed. How are you going to put it in with all the other breeds?
Yep, so linkage for any animal, any breed, within breed, and then across breeds is how you underpin any combined analysis. So basically the only reason why we haven't had a single terminal analysis to this point is because we didn't have enough linkage between a lot of those breeds. Basically now we've gotten to a position where over 30% of the sires that have been used in both evaluations cross over, which is gives us the ability to combine maternals and terminals into a single analysis that has enough linkage, was the first one, and that provides the same level of accuracy as you were getting from the previous evaluations. So we wouldn't be doing it if we didn't have those 2 boxes ticked before. That's what has been the benchmark until this point, why we haven't done it until now. So essentially we've reached the point of saturation between both of those evaluations where we've had enough crossover of sires between those populations that enables us to actually deliver it.
Okay. Thanks, Clara. Other questions at all? Yes? Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'll go. Terry, right
behind you first.
You're on.
I was just wondering when GMP was going to buy someone in Victoria so we could all have a crack. It's a bit far to ship them up here.
You know, that's not the first time someone's asked me that. We'll have to whisper in Will's ear, won't we, Claire and Jake?
No, just yell at his ear.
Okay. Terry, you had
I was going to ask Isabel, she's busy.
no, that's fine. Look,
What percentage of the whole Dorset breeding cohort totally registered or not registered think you touched with this?
Well, 73 rams,
Yeah.
pretty small.
Like how many breeders?
That's a good question. I should know that off the top of my head. I think about 45 breeders, maybe 50, 45.
How many whole Dorset breeders are there in Australia?
That's 330 registered, but there's probably another couple of hundred that are not registered.
So less than 10%.
Oh, much less than 10%. And if you think of every one of those breeders has a huge amount of genetic lines sitting inside their stud. Like this could go forever if we needed to.
So where does that think? What's the next step then? Does it do it again, make it bigger, involve more people, more extension?
I'm pretty open-minded in terms of extension work with other people. Obviously our business has limitations in terms of land use and being able to contribute just having something. We think it's valuable enough that we're going to keep going. So from a business point of view, this is if we get a zero balance at the bottom line of this particular project, we're comfortable. But that can't go on forever, basically. So our business is happy to invest. We're happy to forego the profitability of this portion of our business as an investment on that. We don't want to breed sheep without doing it. I suppose that's where it comes down to. If we don't run this project, we don't know where we're going to get all of our genetics from because we want eating quality as part of our decision-making process. So it's critically important that we do it. So this was to present 5 years' worth of data. We have sheep pregnant again, so we're going again this year. We would like that to go for another 5 years, but what that looks like depends. Like Sally Martin had a chat to me today about potentially, she's got merino ewes And would we be interested in linking some size between a crossbred lamb population, and a Pole Dorset and a Merino? So she runs a Merino trial. So if we actually create a commercial progeny trial space where you've got the crossbred circumstance happening, effectively then we've got a reference population that's in complete alignment with a lot of other commercial breeders out there, and the information becomes really useful.
You hit on something very interesting. We can spend a lot of time looking at ESBVs and all sorts of things to buy rams. But then the other half of our operation, and most commercial blokes, is they're buying first cross ewes from wherever they can get them. So maybe the next step, the next track we've got to head down is start looking at the mothers and see what we're doing.
I think the thing is we're open to every conversation, but we're also completely aware that there's a lot of Pole Dorset genetics out there that haven't been tested, so we're keeping going, because we love it too.
We had a question up the back. Yep.
73 rams used, 14 high performers, and you identified that high performer lamb there on the screen. On the dam side, how many of those used out of your ewe base are repeat high performers that probably should be addressed?
Oh, Damon Coates should answer this one. So, and I say this because those ewes have been identified as surplus ewes out of Ridgehaven for 1 or 100 reasons, right? There is one particular ewe in Bowen Park that should be part of a stud breeding program and part of an ET program. But she was identified for particular reasons not to be part of Ridgehaven, so she's not coming back. We've got to stick to our guns on that.
But after 5 years, is there some ewes in that?
Absolutely. Yeah, there's
It
some.
doesn't matter what sire goes over them?
No, well, because it's random in terms of what sire goes over them, they perform.
Again, different sire, different year.
Yep. Yeah, they perform now. So that may mean that there's just an amazing maternal influence as well. But yes, you're right. There's a female side of this as well.
Okay. There was another question somewhere a minute ago, I thought, because 2 hands went up at once, and then we took the one up the back. No. Yes, it was you, was it?
No, I'll just have another go.
Yeah. You're
I
welcome.
forgot what the Zoetis fella's name was, but
You.
there was work being done on a mastitis vaccination years ago. Is that just fell in a hole? Or
Yeah, there's nothing that I know of at the moment, sorry. But whilst I've got the mic, I just wanted to quickly show people this. Of course, when you try to show something, it's having technical errors. It might be just, is there dodgy internet in Gundagai? I'm not too sure. This is something I've just, when I was just playing around here, Isabel's account was not linked to this. So I'll just go back, if we could just go, it's not there, but if you just go to your MLA, is anyone actually aware of this report? No. So everyone in the room doesn't know about this report. That's right. But what? So then just go up to link services, and then you can just link my feedback.
That's just from the MLA homepage.
Yeah, and everyone in this room would have an account. Yep. Just link it straightforward. It took us 30 seconds whilst we were just sitting here doing Isabel's. So there's Michelle. You might need to help me here. I think is there 7 processors at the moment. I think that's roughly about right. Who are at this stage reporting their data back through into this my feedback. Hopefully, we might see, and that with more and more pressure from industry and from producers, that more and more of our processors come online and be putting their data and your data into this. So you can go back a number of years, anything that's been sold, any sheep that have been sold with your pick, you can come up, and then over on the left-hand side there's the animal disease and defects. You can see from that consignment, 300 lambs for example, what were some diseases or defects that were noted and that you would have been marked down against, especially when I'm talking about something like arthritis. It'll see how you're affected and how that load was affected, and it also compares you against the national average, how the national average is going, and then also the way this works as well, it also gives you a bit of information on that particular disease, how you can rectify it. So it's a really handy website that I'll be honest, I didn't know about until I started working with Zoetis. So it's a fantastic resource. So if you have something, keep on harping on about arthritis. If you think there's an issue there, you can actually go back, quantify it, see that there is an issue, and then you can rectify it with something, an area back, something like that. If there's, you've had issues with grass seeds, you've had issues with dog bites, vaccination lesions, whatever it might be, there's a whole host of diseases. I think there's about 20 diseases that are reported upon. So it's a fantastic resource for for you that are sitting there that unfortunately most people don't know about.
Right. Hugh, I'll apologise again for putting you on the spot, but I think that was very worthwhile.
And it's also available for cattle too.
You just raised a very important question in the whole scheme of things, and as we're moving further and further down a data track, who owns the data? Do the plant own the data once the lambs are killed, or does the producer still have access to that data? Any thoughts, anybody?
Processor or...
Anyone?
I don't know. I certainly don't know.
Yeah, there's a comment.
Do you know, Jocko?
Jock?
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, as long as the plant owns it, doesn't the shell, but the plants that are reporting into the National Sheep Health Monitoring Project, that data becomes publicly disclosed. We used to be able to access it through the LLS or the DPI, and now it's coming back through my feedback model, as well as your grid adherence and things to that. So if they're reporting, you should be able to get the data. The problem is that if you've sold through a sale yard and bought mixed lots, you won't have that history. If you've sold direct, you'll have that going back some way. Probably better on cattle with EIDs, and it'll get better with sheep, but it's pretty handy. And it helped guide the industry investment in some of these diseases way back. So there's millions and millions of sheep worth of data. They'll be only 25 million worth now.
Okay, that leads to another quick question to MLA. Has the database got the capability to handle a huge amount of numbers that's going to be coming at it within the next 12 months?
So it's a really good question. The ISC is the subsidiary company of MLA that handles all of our integrity systems, and basically in the next 5-year plan for ISC is to basically redesign and redevelop NLIS. And that's particularly because the throughput that's now going to be coming from a sheep side of things, we recognise that the data is going to be enormous, and we have to have the capacity for that system to work. So we're already started basically a full review of how NLIS works. The really good part about doing that is now everyone talks about data, and data is really important, and you can get lots and lots of insights from data. The most important part is that data can actually talk to each other. So it doesn't necessarily mean that MLA has to have this big system that houses everything, but we have to have a system that talks to the likes of processors or talks to the likes of our genetic evaluations, and that it can all function together so that we can actually get good insights out of it. So the new NLIS system that they're building is on a new framework, a new language that is of how we build new software so that that can occur. And that project has just started, and it'll be a 5-year process to get it to a point where we basically predicted what would be the throughput in 5 years' time.
Thanks, Clara. That also leads on to another question. I've been sitting here thinking all day about these questions, so please forgive me if I'm starting to bore you. But Gundagai are able to collate an NLIS number to a hook. How far off are we in the rest of the processing sector, do you think?
So an EID, yeah, so we don't give EID feedback on everything at the moment.
Because why I'm asking, for the benefit of everyone, we're now going to have a record of every lamb that's weighed and his EID. If we can get that feedback back, that's why I'm asking the question, Michelle.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think they need to have hook tracking installed, and it's a bit of a process to go from having a panel reader installed in your bleed chain, collecting information and having a good read rate, to then pairing it to an individual carcass. So I think if Victoria, if anyone, should be the most further advanced with that, because we see they came out quite early with it, but I'm not too sure that they've kind of got there. So yeah, maybe it will take a bit of pressure from producers and the likes to be able to link all that up and get that going.
I think we certainly need pressure, because that's going to be one way where producers can get value for money for investing in $1 plus for a tag. Any other questions? Okay. Anything anybody would like to add?
I've got one.
Where's that? Yes, Ash.
It's to Michelle. You were talking about the technology to measure eye muscle area, and that's the camera technology that you're looking at. Do you want to just tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. So we have trialled the MEQ camera in our boning room as an initial way to start looking at eye muscle area, but it did mean we were only scanning sort of 20% of what was coming through, but we have a very small data set, so we've just had a little sneak peek at eye muscle areas. But we're looking into whether we can use the DEXA to be able to do it. So yeah, that's...
So that was too slow to go at chain speed, wasn't it?
Yeah, a bit too slow. Took a labour unit. We just go so quickly in a land plan, just putting through so many through and then linking them back to those individual tags. It was really just to have a little play with the piece of equipment, start to get a bit of data coming through and look at what it might actually be. But I think from an objective carcass measurement basis at line speed, we would be hoping to be able to use our DEXA for that.
So have you started doing that or
It's-
looking at how you might do that?
It's still in its infancy. So just starting really, a bit of an R&D projects around that, yeah. So it'll be a little while before we get there, I would say.
Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think we've just about exhausted the population of questions. If we could give the panel a round of applause. Thank you very much for your time today. I guess a couple of thank yous personally, everyone for turning up, because you don't have days like this if you don't have people come and listen. And I think just as Joe, average producer now, it was fantastic to be able to listen. We've learned a lot. Our business will benefit from coming here today. It's a pity there wasn't 200 farm businesses, as well as all sectors of the lamb industry. So thank you for what you've done. Thank you for what you put on. Speakers who contributed their time, sponsors and speakers, it's been fantastic. So I've really enjoyed the day. Thank you very much. And I think we'll just about close it, Isabel.
Yeah, I've just got one question that I had numerous people ask me, and that was, it kind of links a little bit to what Ellie was talking about too, and they said, what did you feed the lambs? What did you have in the paddock? What crops did they go on? And your comment was in and around what constraints do people have to achieve 250 grams a day and get their lambs sold in December? And everybody's answer out there was all about nutrition and what did they feed them. So we're fortunate on farm that my husband Pete's an agronomist, so he's kind of required to make sure that there's feed available when required. But our lambs were fed on a multi-species crop in some situations. They were fed, so they've been through a variety of different nutrition in their 110 days of being on farm. But we do use fodder crops for the midwinter feed gap to make sure that these lambs have the appropriate nutrition. And you know, there's a variety of that, and I won't go into that, but the most critical thing is that we recognise and plan for the amount of feed that we need ahead of time. So we know how many ewes, how many lambs, what pregnancy rates we've got, identify what our pastures have the capacity to feed, and then that gap between what we need and what we've got at that time of year gets filled with fodder crops. And so if you've got a target weight gain per day that you're looking for, and for us it's maximum, but that's not usually an optimum level for most people. For us it's maximum. For you it might be I need 350 grams or I need 200 grams. It doesn't really matter what it is. Whatever that target weight gain you're looking for, you need to understand the nutrition requirements of the animal to get there. So genetically they've got to be able to do it, but you've got to provide the nutrition. So of all the things that I took out of Ellie was make sure that when you've got a target, you have the plan to get there. And nutrition is your key thing with lambs. So they got fed on a lot of different things, but it was very targeted in terms of what they get. So if you want to come and have a look, you're all very welcome to come up and see the lambs at any time and have a look through what they're eating as well.
Thank you.
All right. So I'm going to say thank you as well. Thank you, Chris, for making the day run so smoothly. We were missing one speaker. Rob Linden, who is a manager of one of the TA field farms, was going to come and give us a case study of him looking at the genetics on his property. Unfortunately, they had some sheep out on an agistment property that were meant to be there for the next 3 weeks, and the owner of the farm told him to come and get them. So he had to go and deal with that. Like lots of people in the room went on tractors today. I could have gone on tractors today. He unfortunately had to go and do that. So Rob is very happy to share his story. And so if you guys are interested in hearing how genetics made an impact, the changing of genetics made an impact to his profitability, I can certainly share that with anyone who was here. So,
thanks very much.
Thank you for all of your time. It's so greatly appreciated. Thank you particularly to our sponsors for helping make this happen, and most especially thank you for everybody coming. It's incredibly humbling and encouraging to see lamb producers, to see stud breeders, to see sire contributors, to see livestock consultants, vets, everybody in the room. It's so great that you guys are interested in making our lamb industry better and making sure that we understand how we can use our genetics to drive profitability. So thank you so much.